The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It is Friday, February 2nd, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Join us for the next 60 minutes of news, talk, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. And joining us here in the studio, running the show, the maestro, Ganja John.
Hey, everybody. We have a very, very special guest in studio today.
We sure do. We have to go to the wide shot here. We've got Cannabis Carrie in the studio as well.
I don't think I'm that special. I'm here every day.
Well, you're here every day, but never next to us. That's the thing. You're in our virtual studio in Astoria, but she's driven down the, 90 miles?
98 miles. Almost 100. We'll call it 100.
We'll call it a good 100 miles here to be with us here today. So we get extra special Cannabis Carrie here for us. And we're going to do the news right after this first break. So what's in the headlines today, Carrie?
Well, we're going to take an update from the Steve Sarich case in Washington. We're going to cover a convention in Denver, Colorado. And then we've got our normal Friday updates and hemp headlines. And you'll have to stay tuned.
All right. All that great stuff coming up here right after the first break. I want to remind you to please visit our sponsors. When you hear their commercials, they're the ones that help us stay on the air, and we definitely want to stay on the air here. The goal here is to eventually port this into a 24/7 network and to have ourselves on satellite and or terrestrial radio. So the more you donate, the better that we can make that happen. You can go to NORML.org and look for the Donate Now button, and in your donation put NORML Show Live, and that'll help us to get more equipment and to get us out there on the air. Now, also on today's show, we've got our daily Toker Tunes. We do it every day. Today's Rockin' Friday, and we've got a song. Eric Smokesbud, our music editor from Wisconsin, brings us a song from Loco Brigida, and it's called Mary Jane. And I think that makes the 11th or 12th song that we've got called Mary Jane in the song library. So it's definitely a very popular.
We could do a whole hour block of just songs called Mary Jane.
We could do a Mary Jane block. We could also put like High. You know, there's probably like 9 or 10 songs called Get High or I'm High or
There's
something.
about 100 songs just called marijuana.
Exactly. So we'll do that one of these days, maybe on a weekend. Also today at the bottom of the hour, we've got Steve Bloom from celebstoner.com. He brings us our celebrity entertainment news. Great news. Well, not great news, but news to those of us who follow NFL football in that Santonio Holmes is in trouble again. So we'll get the latest on that. And at the bottom of the show, we're going to talk about international drug laws. I know a lot of people, especially if you're listening to us in Texas or Oklahoma or Florida, you think, wow, it really sucks out here. We can get in so much trouble for weed. Wait till you hear the stories we have to tell you about international drug laws and some of the things that are happening all around this planet. Remember, marijuana prohibition started here, but it's spread all across the world, and we've got to change it. The United States has to make this change so that the rest of the world can make this change. With your help, we'll get that done. All right, folks, coming up here right after the break, we've got our hemp headlines for you, and I want to remind you to follow us on Twitter at Radical Russ. You can also check out our blog, the NORML Stash blog, at stash.norml.org. And if you have any questions or comments for the show, email them to me, stash@norml.org. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll be right back with Cannabis Carrying Your News. This is NORML Show Live.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 14 states today, and THCF has clinics in 10 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Michigan, New Mexico, and Rhode Island. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or call 1-800-723-0188.
High as a kite, everybody!
This drug in front of me is what they call marijuana.
If we had a dime for every dime bag bought in America, marijuana would be legal by now. Donate to NORML at NORML.org and support NORML Show Live.
I'm going to light.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
An update from the Steve Sarich case, the medical marijuana activist who was in a shootout with a group of home invasion robbers a few weeks ago in Kirkland, Washington. Sarich was hit with a shotgun pellets and suffered wounds to his face and arms. He returned fire, hitting the man who shot him. 5 people were charged in the invasion of Sarich's home. 3 pleaded not guilty on Tuesday to burglary and attempted robbery. The suspect shot by Sarich has undergone surgeries on his heart and lungs, and on Monday had to undergo an amputation of one of his legs below the knee. A few days after the incident, Sarich, a 59-year-old medical marijuana patient, tried to buy a shotgun and pistol to replace the one seized by investigators. After turning in his paperwork, he failed the background check because federal laws prohibit unlawful users of controlled substances from buying or receiving guns. Sarich has no criminal history, but marijuana is illegal under federal law. It seems that when Sarich had reported a previous burglary at his home, he showed his medical marijuana paperwork to investigators. The sheriff's office forwarded the burglary report to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System. A unit supervisor at the King County Sheriff's Office said that the FBI informed them that possession of a medical drug card is sufficient to establish an inference of current use, and therefore the Sheriff's Office can't approve the transfer of a gun to Sarich. The Sheriff's Office is also investigating Sarich for potential violations of the state's medical marijuana law. He is the founder of CannaCare, an organization that provides clones and cannabis to medical marijuana patients. Sarich, who has been the target in at least 2 home invasion robberies, the last one almost taking his life, is now barred from buying, owning, or possessing any guns by the county sheriff's office. This may set a very disturbing precedent for the over 500,000 medical marijuana patients in the United States.
Yeah, disturbing precedent is just the start of it on this one. Basically, they have decided now that you get a choice. You can have medical marijuana or you can have your Second Amendment rights. That's it. Yeah, that's your choice. If you're going to use medical marijuana, you are presumed to be a drug criminal, and we can't let you have a gun. My God, you might, protect yourself from those home invasion robbers that are trying to steal your medicine. You know, it always comes back to the fact that since it's illegal for the most people that want to use it, since it's illegal for the 95% of the people that are not medical users, that's what creates the price and the demand that makes it worth people's while to try to break into people's houses and steal their medicine. And to not allow medical marijuana patients to have a firearm are some of the most vulnerable people, the people who most need a firearm in that sort of situation. So it's a very, very sad case, this Sarich case. We'll keep an eye on this one. I'm sure we haven't heard the end of it.
This weekend, you can attend the Colorado Cannabis Convention if you are in Denver, an event that already has had its share of drama and almost didn't happen. The original promoter, Raymond Sigsteel, and the Boulder Talent Agency had booked the Colorado Convention Center, but then disappeared after cashing a major haul of checks from vendors who had signed up to participate. While originally only sponsors, DailyBuds.com and Cush Colorado Magazine are handling the entire event after stepping up at the last minute after the Denver District Court granted an injunction to them on March 26th, just one short week ago. They are pleased that the courts are letting them go on with the event on behalf of the vendors and the cannabis community. The first annual cannabis convention in the state will be held at the 190,000 square foot Colorado Convention Center on 14th Street in downtown Denver. They have panels of doctors and lawyers, dispensary staff, caregivers, security companies, banks, and even insurance firms that will be on hand to answer questions. If you go, the organizers promise that you can find a public relations firm to hire. Learn how to cultivate your own cannabis garden. Learn how to cook with cannabis and hire a toker-friendly band for your next party. There will be cannabis art, glass blowing, and songwriting contests, a laser show during a performance of Dark Side of the Moon, and appearances of Cypress Hill. Prizes, giveaways, a hemp fashion show, and over 300 vendors to keep you busy. It's open to the general public, and the event is for everyone that like cannabis, although cannabis is strictly forbidden at the public event. Tickets to the convention are cheap, $15. You can get them at the door, and the show runs today until 10 p.m., and tomorrow it runs from noon to 10 p.m.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the convention is going on, but, it does highlight something that's happening. It's happening in Colorado a lot. We've already seen it happen in California, and now, Montana and Michigan are starting to suffer this. And that is the influx of the cannabis businesses and the ability to have dispensaries and to be able to make a lot of money with the marijuana, with medical marijuana statutes as they are. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but there are always going to be people that want to take advantage of these sort of things and take advantage of patients and reformers by, saying they're going to put on a convention or saying they're going to form a NORML chapter or saying they're going to do this or that. A lot of talk, but, when push comes to shove, they take the money and run. And this is just, despicable because there's so many people that are in such need here that anytime a bad story comes out, it makes everyone else look bad, right? The few bad apples spoil the bunch, that old saying. Well, that's what's happening here in the marijuana movement in some cases, is there's so many people with good intentions that are doing good work out there, and those don't get a lot of ink, in the newspapers. They don't get a lot of headlines on the evening news, the people doing the good things. And for 20 of them doing something good, you get one guy doing something bad, and that's the one that's going to show up. Our opponents are looking for every opportunity that they can use to try to bring us down. And we have to remember that, we have kind of a target on our back as activists, and we've got to be better than. It's one of the reasons I wear this hat. People have been, commenting about this hat. It's 100% hemp, right? And it's kind of a symbol, right, that I'm a pothead, get it? But it's also a symbol that hemp can change the world and that hemp is more than just, marijuana. And I wear the hat everywhere I go, and I love catching the looks of people when they see it. Some people are cool with it. Other people, pull their kids closer, right? And I do that to remind myself that when I'm out in public, I've got an image to maintain, and I've got to make the rest of us look good. And I think that the rest of us should do that as well. That all of us that are cannabis consumers should try to be the best cannabis consumers we can. I know one of Carrie's idols, Rick Steves, always talks about this. And what was the thing that he said about that?
Rick Steves said the fastest way to legalization is to make it impossible for people to not like you.
Right.
And then be as open as you can about your personal habits and what you feel about cannabis law reform.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's that whole concept of coming out of the cannabis closet and letting people know as best you can. I mean, you don't want to lose your job or your family or anything, but as many people as you can know that you're a responsible adult cannabis consumer, the faster this gets changed.
And here for a round of headlines. We brought you a story this week about Hawaiian Governor Linda Lingle, who had rallied a Chamber of Commerce on the Big Island to fight against legislation to allow dispensaries in the state. Governor Lingle should be happy with the House Judiciary Committee then, as they have let a legislative deadline pass yesterday without considering the bill, effectively killing it for this year. Committee Chairman Representative John Ricky Karmatusta says he was worried that marijuana dispensaries would fuel illegal sales of the drug. He's also concerned about the state running up against against federal drug laws. Medical marijuana patients argue that Hawaii needs to reform its decade-old law, allowing them to smoke and even grow the drug, but prohibiting them from buying it. The bill passed the Senate and 2 House committees before stalling. Medical marijuana dispensaries will likely be considered again during next year's legislative session.
Oh, we hope we can get something passed, but, the problem in Hawaii is that governor, Linda Lingle. And this is the problem we have in a lot of states like Minnesota or New Hampshire or Connecticut, where the legislature's for the reforms, the people are for the reforms, and they get stopped by one person. They get stopped by these governors who veto the measures. And, it's so easy for law enforcement to be able to target one person, a governor, and all these lobbyists, these prison lobbyists and so on, to target the one person that can stop all the hard work of all the other people. This is why elections are so important. Pay attention to who's running for governor, pay attention to the primaries, and ask these people what their stand is on medical marijuana, industrial hemp, and marijuana legalization.
The medical staff at Delta Rescue are using an unconventional therapy on many of its animals. Delta Rescue Sanctuary is home to more than 1,500 animals on a 94-acre ranch in Southern California, the largest no-kill animal sanctuary of its type in the world. After hearing about the benefits of hemp seed oil in humans, animal welfare activist and founder of the sanctuary, Leo Grillo, asked his medical staff to try it out. Chief veterinarian Dr. Gaylord Brown has begun using hemp oil in their most difficult cases, such as those for cancer. He is reporting that within a few weeks he has seen measurable improvements in most of the treated animals' lab work, especially in their liver enzymes. He says an added benefit has also been an improvement of hair and coat vitality, both of which are adversely affected by chemotherapy, another treatment that they use for dogs and cats with cancer. There are no psychoactive molecules in the hemp seed oil, as it is pressed from the seeds of the cannabis plant.
Wow, we got hemp seed oil cancer treatments for pets, and yet the United States government won't allow our scientists to study the same hemp oil for the treatment of cancer in humans.
Rap superstar and my personal driving assistant Snoop Dogg has said this week on Larry King that he has never performed without being under the influence of marijuana. Snoop Dogg has been an advocate for legalization for the length of his career, and now the superstar enjoys cannabis more openly since he has a prescription for medical marijuana. Talk show host Larry King asked him if he can perform just as well if he is high, and Snoop Dogg answered, "How about I've never performed without it?"
Well, gee, was there any question about that? Was that something that was in doubt in anybody's mind?
Just Larry King's.
Make a left up here, baby.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg in the hizzy. Hey, a couple other updates I want to get to here that a lot of folks in the chat room have been bringing up is the Washington bill got signed. Governor Chris Gregoire signed that bill, and what it does is it expands the medical marijuana law so that you don't have to be a medical doctor to recommend medical marijuana. You can be an osteopath, you can be a naturopath, or a physician's assistant. So this is some pretty amazing news on that front.
That is exciting. I have one more story. I was going to say that goes into effect in June, so just a few short months away, then they will be able to start prescribing medical cannabis.
Yeah, and I imagine that's going to make the prices for the clinics or the visit go way down.
One of Adidas' brand of popular sneakers has just got an upgrade. When Adidas came out with hemp shoes almost a decade ago, they were given grief about it from the federal government, so they changed the name of the model from Superstar Hemp to Gazelle Natural. The shoes were made out of recycled rubber on the bottom and boasted that they were completely biodegradable. The shoes have become popular, offered only in natural beige color with a large marijuana leaf pictured on the tongue of the shoe. Hemp is very durable and breathes very well as a shoe material. Well, now fans of the shoe can get the Gazelle 2.0 in 3 nature-inspired tones: a mellow blue, a desert tan, or army green with 100% hemp construction with just a small little bit of leather on the stripes and the liner. Collectors can buy one in every color. The shoes are offered by Adidas for $55.
$55 for a good pair of hemp shoes. Now I can get that tux from Woody Harrelson to go with it.
There you go.
Oh, we'll
and your hat, you're all set up,
Got the
Russ.
hemp hat. We're all good to go. It's so much fun. Thank you, Carrie, for giving us that
You bet.
news. Great to have you here in the studio. Carrie's going to leave us here for a second to get our people on the line. Steve Bloom will be with us here at the bottom of the hour. 30 Friday after the hour with the Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report. New news on Santonio Holmes, the football player, apparently in trouble again. Coming up after this next break, we are going to get our Daily Toker tunes. It's Rockin' Friday. Eric Smokesbud from Wisconsin will be joining us, and he's got a great tune for us from a group called Loco Brigida, and it's entitled Mary Jane. And at the end of the show, a radical rant on international drug laws. Stay tuned. This is Normal Show Live. It's break time, and for those new folks out there just joining us for the first time, it's 20 after the hour, and I don't know about you, but at 20 after, we have a special sort of tradition here at Normal Show Live. Won't you join us?
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Law420.com. Hello, I'm Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML. In my job, I read literally hundreds of headlines each month involving nonviolent, productive citizens whose lives are ripped apart by a marijuana or drug arrest. Many citizens could avoid arrest by refusing police searches and remaining silent, but police are well trained to confuse and intimidate. That's why you have a right to speak to an attorney before answering any police questions. I hope you never need to exercise that right, but if you do, make your first call to the law offices of John C. Lucy IV. John Lucy is an accomplished criminal defense attorney with expertise in Oregon's medical marijuana law. John Lucy understands and respects cannabis and drug consumers of all backgrounds. Call John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit in downtown Portland. Address available at law420.com. That's John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit law420.com today.
Almost busted in Laredo, but for reasons that I'd rather not disclose.
I smoke pot, and I like it a lot. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer to use than alcohol. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting responsible marijuana smokers in America. And to learn what you can do to help, please contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
The show was long and we were just sitting there, and we'd come to play and not just for the ride.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our pod-safe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we take you into the weekend with Rockin' Friday, our segment featuring the best rock, metal, punk, and jam band music, brought to you by The Bastard, blogging at jerseyandohio.wordpress.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
Hi Stashers, here is Eric Smokesbud with your Rockin' Friday Toker Tune.
Today I have Mary Jane from Marijuana Music Awards entry Loco Brigida. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hailing from Denmark, Loco Brigida is a genre-crunching artist combining electronic, reggae, metal, and pop in a very unique way. Featuring dance beats and ripping, almost Eddie Van Halen-like guitar solos, Mary Jane will definitely take you for a ride. Her MySpace page states, Loco Brigida loves disco, dub, electronica, and 80s metal guitar. So she decided to mix it all into a highly energetic and entertaining cocktail. Danceable grooves, hook lines that stick like superglue, furious fretboarding, craziness, and a feeling that is familiar yet fresh and new. No matter how you classify your music, though, it's definitely worth a listen. You can find Local Brigida at MySpace, YouTube, and on iTunes. Have a great weekend, Stashers.
All right, thanks, Eric Smokesbud, taunting me with his Chicago Bears cap. Go Pack, go. This is Loco Brigida featuring Ruby Manslaughter, Mary Jane. You can get this downloaded from our site, stash.normal.org. Oh, yeah, that's some rock and roll. I'm liking that.
Okay, we'll have them unmute. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, that's right. Loca Brigida with Mary Jane.
Hi, I'm Keith Straub, the founder of NORML. In all the years since 1970 that I've been fighting marijuana prohibition, I've learned that drug warriors love to confuse the public with statistics. Lately, they've claimed that there are more teens enrolled in drug treatment for marijuana than ever before. It's a statement that, while true, is intentionally misleading. What they don't tell you is that marijuana arrests have skyrocketed to over 800,000 arrests per year. They also don't tell you that we've gone from a few dozen drug courts in the 1990s to over 2,500 drug courts today. The kicker is that those drug courts sentence teens routinely to drug treatment for marijuana whether they need drug treatment or not. So they arrest more people for pot, require them to enter drug treatment, then claim the higher treatment numbers justify more pot arrests. It's an absurd proposition, but no more absurd than banning a plant. Learn the facts about pot. Visit NORML.org today.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
Everyone move. Want to get your targets and talk nice.
Marijuana culture is infused throughout America and the world. As we round out the week, we take a look at the 420 phenomenon in movies, TV, music, and sports with former High Times editor and author of Pot Culture, Steve Bloom, in our celebstoner.com entertainment news. That's right, on the first and third Fridays of the month, we visit with Steve Bloom in New York City. Steve, welcome back to the show.
How you doing, Russ?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, April is hit, and that means all the big festivals are starting. I always think of the Hash Bash as the first, festival, that opens the season up. I'll bet you're pretty busy this summer, aren't you?
Well, this spring anyway. You're not looking to the summer quite yet, but I do wish I was in Ann Arbor tomorrow for Hash Bash. I think Hash Bash probably has more significance now that they passed the medical law and so much is going on in Michigan. Things were a little quiet in Michigan, and the Hash Bash would be sort of a kind of a quiet event for about 5,000 people. But I have a feeling it's quite a bit bigger these days.
Yeah, and we got a lot of new listeners to the show that are turned on to Normal Show Live, and they're younger, and they probably don't know the whole background of why the Hash Bash is such a big deal. Can you give them kind of a quick history lesson?
Well, Hash Bash goes back to the early 70s, when the first smoke-ins began around the country, just like the one in New York and the one in Washington, D.C. It all kind of came out of the sort of the hippie community, was sort of into smoking in the streets and, civil disobedience to try and change the marijuana laws. And, basically the idea of the smoke-in, which, continues to this day in, Seattle and Boston and other, rallies all over the country. But they don't usually use the term smoke-in anymore. It's a little bit of an old-fashioned term. But the Hash Bash was, originally one of the smoke-ins, one of the first university-oriented events. You went to the campus and you did your protest on campus, and you might have a little more freedom. Of course, at that time, Ann Arbor, where this takes place, was a very fervent campus with a lot of politics going on, and famously, John Sinclair was well known in the area, and John had been arrested for marijuana and spent a couple of years in jail. And the Hash Bash kind of sprung out of that, to do events, to promote, changing the laws and, to try and get someone like John Sinclair out of jail. So I think it really goes back to then, and it's been yearly, the first Saturday, or actually, it's the first Saturday of April every year, I think since 1970. So it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, marijuana legalization event in the country. People get together on the Diag. It's only a 1-hour event. They've never expanded it. The school is very strict about it. They let people get together for 1 hour from 12 to 1. They pretty much do the speech on bullhorns or microphones, whatever they're using. Usually it's about 5,000 people. But again, it could expand now because of sort of what's been going on in Michigan. And then what's happened now is that it's a big event throughout town all day long. There's things going on the night before, the day of, the night of. And previously when I first started to go to it, it was like you're in and out. Just you got your hour and then pretty much you're done and maybe go back to somebody's house and smoke a joint. Now it's, I believe, although I haven't been there for several years, it's a much bigger event.
Yeah, they've got the Hash Bash is taking place this Saturday on the Diag at the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor. Starts right at noon, and then after the smoke out, everybody heads to the Monroe Street Fair. So check that out. If you want some more details, check the calendar at Celeb Stoner. Check the calendar at NORML. We've all got information on it. The chat room is lighting up, Steve, with everyone talking about the South Park episode that was on Wednesday. We talked a little bit about it on Thursday. I was wondering what your thoughts were on, some of the jibes they made at medical marijuana.
Well, I thought it was hysterically funny. Usually, oftentimes, I don't take these jibes so lightly, but I just think that these guys, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who created South Park and I'm sure wrote this episode, they really have their finger on the pulse. And yeah, we don't like people, thinking that that you have to fake your way to get medical marijuana. That's not a good idea. But remember, this is comedy, and so they're gonna go for the jugular, so to speak. They're gonna go for what is the funniest. And the way South Park treated it, I just thought it was really very funny. Now, yeah, they're saying one of the main characters, Randy, wants to be able to be a patient, so he gets cancer. That's kind of a funny concept. If you can suspend, your seriousness for a minute, and, obviously it's not funny to anybody with cancer, but this is humor, this is parody, this is sarcasm, so you have to suspend it and enjoy it, because this is what, animation comedy does on television. And you'd have to say The Simpsons, Family Guy, and South Park all equally go after the same territory, and they've all sort of taken stabs to the medical marijuana, with maybe the Family Guy being a little friendlier last year. But this episode reminded me a lot of the famous Simpsons episode, Weekends at Bernsey, when Homer gets high, but he kind of is so stoned he forgets to kind of get to the rally on time, and nobody shows up because everybody's stoned. So it's a little bit on the negative that stoners are a little brain dead, but that's not really what I get out of this stuff. I just, laugh. And you have to, laugh when, let's just face it, this guy, gets cancer. He has, testicular cancer, which creates enormously large testicles, which he starts hopping around on, which is just funny. I mean, again, if you don't find it funny, then turn it off and go to something else. But
yeah.
It really was funny. But the secondary storyline was equally as funny, and that was that they had closed the KFC and opened up a dispensary, and Cartman, who's hooked on KFC, is freaking out because they've passed a law, according to the show, in Colorado that's kind of banning fast food. So he can't get any. So now it becomes an underground commodity. And what happens? He has to go sort of, acquire it like it's a drug. So the parallels were just brilliant. And furthermore, they built the Scarface storyline into it. So he becomes like a Tony Montana who's working his way up through the chicken underground, so he can score nuggets.
Yeah.
and it's like line for line Scarface. So if you're a Scarface fan, it was just brilliant, and I am. So these dual storylines, I mean, by the end, flipping it back around where, they close the store, they reopen the KFC, and they find that the reason why people are getting testicular cancer is because they were trying to get cancer, so therefore it's not happening anymore. Little silly wrap-up, but the whole thing was just funny from beginning to end, honestly. I mean, I really have to applaud them, even though it pokes a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Get your own medicinal marijuana cards.
I guess that's the
exactly.
That's our direction here.
It's just so funny. Ha ha ha! You can't smoke this. Out in the street smoking in front of the cop. I mean, everything. Just sort of nails it in a humorous way.
Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously. Have a laugh and let's move on and let's legalize marijuana. And furthermore, that comes through. The message is clearly stated in the show, too. Why don't we legalize pot, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of woven in, but it's not the main message you're going to get out of that show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to sports. We did some sports stories last week with regard to, the NFL all-drug bust team again. You've got a new story up on Santonio Holmes, the Steelers Super Bowl winner. Tell us about what's going on in Santonio drama.
Well, I have to say most of the, the Celeb Stoner sports news is not good news. Usually most of the reports are drug busts and failed drug tests. And in the case of Santonio Holmes, who we, hailed quite a bit on the website, for his great play that led to the Steelers winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago, he was the Super Bowl MVP, and he caught the winning touchdown pass miraculously at the very end of the game. He had been arrested for marijuana that season, and that arrest was dismissed after the season. So, we kind of focused on him and called him Super Bowl Stoner. He had a couple of blunts in the car, but he was stopped erroneously. They picked on him when they were looking for somebody else of his color in a similar car. So they ended up dropping the whole thing. Now, recently what happened, it's an unfortunate situation. Santonio was in a bar in Orlando. He was in a VIP section. A woman got a little too close to him. She was sitting on the corner of the couch. He didn't like it for some reason. Who knows why? He basically told her to leave. She wouldn't leave, and kind of a confrontation ensued. You know, it's like she was more or less saying, hey, listen, you don't own this VIP section on this couch. Furthermore, I don't know who the hell you are. And so he threw a glass at her with a drink in it and apparently hit her face, you know, cut her, but not really a bad situation where she went to the hospital and everything. But nevertheless, it was, I think, more the intent of him doing something that could have caused that kind of damage. So she is suing him civilly. He hasn't been charged with the crime. He's being sued civilly for that action and for the damages that it might have caused her. Well, interestingly, when became kind of a confrontation and that to be separated and police came and stuff like that, he pretty much went over to her and said, hey, listen, I can't have some trouble here. I'm a National Football League player. Can we work this out? And she claims not. You know, she wasn't willing. She claimed that she was, you know, encouraged by the police to sort of make an agreement, like, yeah, here's some money, shut up and go away. She decided not to do that. She's not only asking for that much money. She asked for $15,000, and she's also suing the club. So I think she felt the way the club handled the situation, you know, was totally a difference to him as a star player. So let's just wipe this thing under, you know, out and, you know, forget about it. And she decided not to. So, you know, these he said, she said stuff, you never quite know what goes on. But nevertheless, it is in the news.
Well, let's do something a little better news for our community out here, and that is you've always got the latest reviews of the movies that will be interesting to the folks that are listening. I saw two of them up here I thought I'd ask you about. One is the Runaways movie, which, you know, I was a big fan of that group back in the day, and then the other another music movie, a Fish 3D movie on 420. Tell us about that.
Well, what's happening with the Fish 3D movie? It's a movie that was shot when they did their Festival 8 festival back in October. They did a 3-day festival around Halloween, and they, you know, famously, you know, did like a whole night of Stone songs. And one of the 3 shows, they did Exile on Main Street. They did the whole album. They like to do like one whole album on Halloween. So they recorded all that. All of that was filmed. That's coming out as a 3D film, which is cool, right? And but what's really interesting is that it's coming out on the 30th at the end of this month, and on the 20th, April 20th. They're doing screenings in 9 cities around the country, advanced screenings for Fish fans to kind of get the see the film and start spreading the word. So very smart of Fish to do that. The 9 cities, you know, I believe it's Boston, Burlington, Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, New York, Raleigh, Durham, and Washington, D.C. Sorry, no Portland. And I believe a lot of these screenings are sold out because you can figure that the theater's not going to be that big, maybe a 400-seater or something like that. And interestingly, is right around the corner from where I live, a theater in Brooklyn they're having it at, which is very exciting, although I won't be here on 420, so I will be missing that screening. That should be very exciting for Fish fans, you know, just that, you know, there hasn't been never been a live documentary of the band in a long time, and Bittersweet Hotel was the only one, or Bittersweet Motel was the only one that I know of, and it was actually done by Todd Phillips, who did the Hangover road trip. So, you know, that was more of an inside look at the band, but there really hasn't been anything since, and especially anything really live. So that should be very exciting. And as far as the Runaways, that's out now. I don't think it really did well. I think it's kind of come and gone a little bit. It opened a few weeks ago. I think it was probably 2 Fridays ago. I love the movie. I think it's just excellent. It really a great period piece. I generally like movies set in the 70s because the 70s is sort of a fun period, you know, to go back and look at. And there's usually drugs and sex and rock and roll. Yeah. And that's pretty much what this movie is about. It's Kristen Stewart is one of our favorite top celeb stoners. She plays Joan Jett. Joan Jett was the leader of the band, but she really wasn't the front singer at the time. She really didn't get super famous until she kind of left and started the, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. You know, I love rock and roll and that kind of stuff, which really made her super famous. Before that, you know, she was just one of the girls in the Runaways, and the Runaways are unique because, you know, there really weren't female rock bands at the time, much less, you know, even one member in a band. And so there were 4 or 5 girls who got together and put together, you know, a band. And I guess they were accused at the time of not being good musicians, you know, kind of a stunt. And but the storyline is very well told. It's based on Cherie Curry's book. Now, Cherie Currie was the lead singer, the blonde singer in the band, and she was sort of plucked out of obscurity when Joan Jett was starting a band, and the character who played, Kim Fowley, who was sort of this Bengali who discovered them, so to speak, and put them in a studio and, said, you're going to be the greatest thing. So, he got behind them, but they discovered Cherie, and Cherie is really a Cherie story, and it's a really interesting story. Cherie didn't really deal with, fame that well. She went towards drugs and had problems and left the group, and, became, kind of destined for a certain degree of obscurity until she wrote a book about her life, and then they turned this book into the movie. And the movie, by the way, was co-produced by Joan Jett, so she was in support of the whole thing. So I really think it was very well done. I mean, Kristen Stewart's, it's kind of a little bit of a subdued role. She plays this very, butch sort of lesbian, and they're the girls kiss a little bit and stuff, and Cherie's a little bit more bisexual, and it really is. Dakota Fanning plays Cherie, and I just think it's a breakout role for her. If you thought of her as a kid actor over the years, go see this movie and see if she's really grown up. It's a very good movie. I would also like to say that there's another movie that was supposed to open today called Leaves of Grass.
Oh,
there was a lot of anticipation for this movie with Dave Norton playing a pot grower, like two guys. He plays twins, and one of the twins is a pot grower in Oklahoma, and he gets duped into the other brother, who's a professor at Harvard, I believe, gets duped into coming to Oklahoma to help him out for something, and he really has disowned his brother. The professor brother has disowned his pot grower brother over the years. He doesn't relate to the whole thing, and it's sort of interesting to see playing two characters like that. And the movie is written and directed by Tim Blake Nelson, who's a very good character actor, and like he was in The Good Girl with John C. Reilly, played Stoner Buzz on the couch, if you remember that movie with Jennifer Aniston. So this movie, which they were really pushing, and High Times is a big interview with Ed Norton in the current issue to promote the movie. They've been doing screenings. I just did an interview with Tim Blake Nelson last week that was supposed to be, appear on Celeb Stoner, today. I got a call or email a couple of days ago saying the movie has been postponed. They're holding it back till the summer. They got a new distributor, and I believe they're going to kind of give it a bigger push. To be honest, First Look Entertainment or whatever studios was putting it out, and they were kind of doing it on a low budget. They weren't spending any money on advertising. They probably weren't going to put it in a lot of theaters, and it was going to probably be one of those stoner movies that would go sort of, under the radar, and then really people would pick it up on DVD and not really see it in theaters. So, in a way, it's a good thing because maybe, with all the time spent on promoting it between now and August, whenever the release is, and with a bigger company, it'll get a bigger push. But a little disappointing that it doesn't come out now in the 420 cycle. So that was the next big 420-ish movie that was coming out. There's also a movie coming out next week that's called When You're Strange, which is a Doors documentary, which I'm looking forward to as well. So there's a bunch of things coming out, this month. It's sort of a good season for stoner movies.
Yeah, well, we've got a question from Cannabis Carrie, who's here in the studio, and she's got another movie she wanted to ask you about. So, Carrie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking Steve if you knew about the Howard Marks movie that was coming out. I heard it had some big names in it, but I haven't heard anything since the original press release.
It's a really good question. I've been trying to find out myself. It's a bit of a mystery. It was supposed to open in England because it's Howard Marks is he was born in Wales, a smuggler. He wrote the book Mr. Nice and has the seed company Mr. Nice, pretty famous over in Europe and maybe not so well known here in the U.S. But one of the famous 70s, 60s, 80s smugglers who got caught, did some time, and got out and made a life for himself. And the movie is starring Rhys Ifans and Chloe Sevigny, who's going to play his wife. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I have heard not a peep about a release here in the U.S. and much less anything about England. It was supposed to open in March, but I haven't seen any reviews, so maybe it's been delayed. Really looking forward to that. And I also like to mention a movie that's doing fairly well last week, Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody curious about that one?
Sure.
Kind of a raunchy movie, but a lot of fun. It's got some stoner elements to it. The funnest stoner element is John Cusack's character smoking a bong and doing mushrooms all at once. It's a very funny scene where he's sort of, if you I think about the storyline, the guys go back in time because this time machine, which is the hot tub, takes them back to 1986. And, it's kind of like a Back to the Future, Peggy Sue gets married kind of idea of them kind of, they remain who they are. They're not the same, they're the same characters they are 20 years later, but, they can see everything, through the lens of like what's happening then in 86. But there is some drugs in it. So I would kind of loosely consider Stoner movie, especially for that particular scene with John Cusack.
Yeah, well, thank you, Steve, so much for the report. We want everyone to check out celebstoner.com for the latest information on celebrities and cannabis. They've got the top celeb stoners you can vote for, and we'll talk to Steve in another 2 weeks, right before 420. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Right before 420. Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, Russ.
All right, we're right back after this. We're going to talk a little bit about international drug laws. Stay tuned.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Just say no.
No matter what you call it, it's a huge part of popular culture.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech?
Drug school. You don't need weed school. You just need a copy of the new book, Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life.
Hey, this is great, man.
Even if you never smoked marijuana.
I never used marijuana. Sorry.
Don't think you smoked marijuana.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two and didn't inhale.
Or you used to smoke marijuana.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Pot Culture by former High Times editor Steve Bloom and Shirley Halperin will answer every question you ever had about marijuana culture.
Has that marijuana made it back up here yet?
Check out Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life at Amazon.com or visit potculturebook.com today.
Too bad, man. I just stopped smoking yesterday.
You want to legalize it? Call your congressman today. 202-224-3121. It's free, it's easy, and you don't even have to give your name, just your zip code, and they'll hook you up to your congressman. Call 202-224-3121 and tell Congress you support marijuana legalization.
All right, 50 after the hour. Welcome back. NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation. Hey, tell your friends about the show. We're here every weekday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, with replays at 3, 5, 7, and 9.
That's what you got to do. Liberate your mind.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hoorah!
All right, everybody. That's right. It's time for the Radical Rant. This is my chance to just talk a little bit in depth about a particular story that's come across the wires this week. And this one I've got posted up at our blog, stash.normal.org. And it's the story of Australian unionist Robert McJanet. Okay, this guy is he's in some hot water. He's facing 20 years for 1.7 grams of marijuana. That's right, 1.7 grams of marijuana. He could be spending 20 years in an Indonesian prison cell. This is a report from The Australian, the newspaper, that says he was arrested in Bali with his adult son on a Virgin Blue flight from Perth, Australia. Bali police allege that McJanet was carrying marijuana in a plastic bag in socks in his luggage. They say, according to the law, and this is the Colonel Indarto of Bali Police Drug Squad, said, quote, because he carried more than 2 grams, this could not be indicated as users, as, you know, they're saying he's a drug trafficker, not just a drug user. This could not be considered a user because user's limitation is only 0.15 grams. That's why he's aimed with carrying drugs, end quote. That's right. 150 milligrams of pot is considered what a pot user could reasonably be expected to have. Anything over 150 milligrams, you're considered a drug trafficker in Bali. Now, for those of you who are a little bit metric challenged, 150 milligrams of pot is 5/1000ths of an ounce. 5/1000ths of an ounce. Or as comedian Ron Tater Salad White once said when he got busted with 875 milligrams of marijuana, quote, they found 7/8 of a gram of marijuana in my bag. Now, when I have less than 7/8 of a gram of marijuana, I consider myself to be out of marijuana, end quote. So this gives you an idea of how harsh the drug laws are. You know, we think of, Florida or Oklahoma being harsh, but man, 150 milligrams, anything over that, you're considered a trafficker. Now, to give you an idea how much 150 milligrams of pot is, take a penny, right? Take a penny and then take a little bit of leaf and shape that leaf into, your little ground up weed, right? Take a little bit of ground up weed about the diameter of a penny, and that's 150 milligrams of pot. We're talking one bowl here, right? Now, they're saying they caught this guy with 1.7 grams of cannabis. Now, 1.7 grams actually weighs 0.8 of a gram less than the penny that I just mentioned. So we got some commentary here from the folks here who want to talk about this, too.
I just want to say, I've been all over the world. I've never been to Bali, but after what I smoked today, I could probably spend about 60 years in prison in Bali.
60 years in a Bali prison, that's for sure. Yeah, and we get these stories all the time, of these massive amounts of years that people get in prison for this amount of drugs, which is hardly anything, and it just always bothers me when we have to tell these stories. I did a story I think a year or two ago about a guy in Dubai who got caught with 0.03 grams of marijuana, 0.03. And basically what had happened is he had dreads, right? And they kind of suspected something, right? And they searched him. They didn't find anything on his person. They searched his luggage. They didn't find anything in his luggage. They actually went and they took his shoes off, and on the underneath of the shoe took like a toothpick in the treads of the shoe and found a little speck of cannabis. And this got the guy 4 years in prison in Dubai for this little speck of cannabis in his shoe tread. So it gives you some idea of how obscene these drug laws are. And I want to bring this back to America because, you think, oh, well, that's terrible. 20 years for drugs in Bali, that's awful. But we live in America and that's not going to happen. Well, it does happen here. Usually we're not talking just possession, but we're talking about people that grow marijuana. In Oklahoma, Will Foster was originally sentenced for growing, I think, something like a dozen plants for medical purposes. He was sentenced to 93 years when that sentence originally came down, right? We get women especially that are being impacted by the drug laws in that they get charged with conspiracy, and they end up going to prison for 20, 30 years when their boyfriends that were involved with the drug trade actually get less time. And these international cases are only a factor because the United States has made it so. The United States in 1961 helped to bully the rest of the world into signing something called the Single Convention on Drugs. The Single Convention Treaty, 1961 with the United Nations, was basically the United States using our superpower status to get the rest of the world to sign on to our anti-drug missions. And we continue to this day by withholding federal aid, any sort of foreign aid to these countries unless they follow our sorts of drug laws. I mean, Jamaica, for example, is a country where ganja is technically illegal because the United States forces them to do that if they want to get any sort of aid, and yet almost everyone in the population is using ganja. So we've got this dichotomy here, and the problem is with the United States. We have to solve our drug situation. We have to end marijuana prohibition in this country, not just for the Americans that will be helped, but for all the people all around the world that will be helped by easing our pressure on them to conform to our drug laws. Right now, there's another story that I just seen up at Celeb Stoner's site, and it's about Afghanistan. Currently, our troops are in Afghanistan, fighting for whatever it is we're fighting for in Afghanistan. And we've long known that Afghanistan has been the world's #1 supplier of heroin. They're growing opium poppies like crazy there because it's really just about the only thing you can grow in Afghanistan. It's a pretty lousy countryside if you want to be a farmer, right? Plus, with the markets the way they are, they can just get so much more money for growing the heroin. Well, now it turns out that Afghanistan is also the world's #1 producer of cannabis. It's actually surpassed the United States in cannabis production, and the majority of that cannabis in Afghanistan is being processed into hashish, makes its way through Morocco and to Europe. So, once again, we see drugs having so much of a factor in warfare around the world. These poor farmers, that's all they can grow to have a subsistence living, and it's all because of our prohibition that does not allow them to have that as a legitimate crop. right? If we were to legalize drugs, legalize marijuana, and come up with more sensible regulations for other drugs, these farmers could be legal growers. They could legally be providing these medicines to the world, to Europe, to the United States, and we could help these economies grow. Our safety in America, we're only safe if the rest of the world is safe. If Mexico falls apart because of all of this drug trafficking and this drug corruption, then that affects us directly, affects our safety. Ending the war on drugs is the best thing we could do for our homeland security. You heard it here first. All right, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here at Normal Show Live. We're here every weekday, Monday through Friday, at 1 p.m. Pacific. And we will be joining you next week. And we've got all sorts of special shows coming up all through April. We'll be at the International Hemp and Cannabis Expo in San Francisco. We'll be at the THC Expose in Los Angeles. Join us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers. Love ya.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.